Delegators, welcome to another live stream with Titan Node, the #1 place to delegate your stake. Today, we're going to be talking about Layer 2 and Livepeer. We're going to be talking about what it means for you as a delegator, and if you're watching this as an orchestrator, what it means for orchestrators as well. So there's about like 4 parts to this video. We'll start with the phase 1 and phase 2 of what Layer 2 is going to look like for Livepeer. And that's kind of like the big how-to, and that's going to affect all delegators. So if you're delegated to Titan Node or any other orchestrator, this is going to affect you. So we'll get that right off the hop. And then second thing we're going to go into is more conceptual stuff, like what is Layer 2, what are the protocol, which protocol is Layer 2 Livepeer going to be using for Layer 2, and what are the benefits and risks, how it affects orchestrators, delegators, and the entire ecosystem. So if you're with us, thanks for joining, and let's just jump right into the first part of this video, which is the Layer 2 and how it affects us. So this is the post produced by Yondon, who is a core developer of the Livepeer team, and this is outlining kind of how the Layer 2 is going to be implemented. At least this is a draft idea of how Layer 2 is going to be implemented and the steps that are going to be taken. So when you're a delegator, you have to spend ETH fees in order to delegate to an orchestrator, and then you can start receiving rewards. Well, what's going to happen is when we move to Layer 2, it's going to significantly decrease the ETH fees for everyone, okay? But in order to move to Layer 2, there's a bit of a process, okay? We have to move everything onto a Layer 2 rollup, which I'll talk later about different kind of rollups. But the way it's going to be happening is through a 2-phase process. At least this is what's being published right now. So Yondon just put this out about 10 hours ago, and this is the design for how we're going to probably go ahead with the migration. He also posed 2 questions at the end, which I will go through and give my response as to what I think is the right answer. So the first phase is this enabling of orchestrators to move to Layer 2 first. And then the second phase is having delegators able to claim their tokens on the Layer 2. And the reason this is really important is because if everyone had to spend ETH in order to move their tokens to Layer 2, that could be like a pretty large transaction cost. Let's call it $400 worth of ETH to move your stake to Layer 2 if we moved over everyone from just Layer 1 to Layer 2, right? That's the first option. The problem is if somebody only has $100 worth of stake and you have to spend $400 on a transaction to move it to Layer 2, that's not worth it, right? Even if it was $50, it's still really expensive, and it pretty much completely eliminates all the rewards you would have gotten if you had been delegating to Livepeer. And that's laid out in here. Yondon talks about how we could estimate that there'll be as many as 2,000 or more delegators, which the L1 transaction cost to go to L2 would not be worth it. Okay, so it's over 2,000 people are not even going to consider this transaction cost. So how do we mitigate that? Okay, the way we do that is we first enable orchestrators to move all their stake, including all of their delegator stake, over to Layer 2 in one transaction. Okay, so it's the orchestrator's cost in order to move the stake over to Layer 2. Okay, and what they do is they take all their stake with them. And so that's only 100 transactions, because there's only 100 orchestrators, rather than 4,000, 5,000, or however many delegators are in this ecosystem, right? So what happens is there's a snapshot that's taken of all the stake that is staked to each orchestrator. We then move all the orchestrators to Layer 2, and then on Layer 2, this is the second phase, all the delegators get to come in and claim the tokens that they originally had in the snapshot for Layer 1 that happened a bit ago, okay? So the rationale behind this is that none of the delegators have to actually pay to move their tokens onto Layer 2. That is done by the orchestrator, which I think is a great idea. There is a couple downsides to this, though. The first downside is you have a waiting period. So you have to take the snapshot of all the orchestrators and their stake, and then you need to move them onto layer 2, but you have to wait for all the orchestrators to do that. So there's got to be some sort of time frame that we have a limit on how we can move it over. We also have to agree on the snapshot itself, because it's a trustless snapshot. Like you can't take the snapshot within a blockchain that's trustful. Like you have to take this snapshot from outside of it. From my understanding, there's people smarter than me that understand this a bit better, but it's basically a trustless problem with taking a snapshot. So once you take the snapshot, you have to vote to make sure that everyone agrees with the snapshot. Okay, and so that will take a week. So we take the snapshot, we wait a week, we vote on it, we make sure that everyone votes on it and that it's correct, and then all the orchestrators move over to layer 2, at which point phase 2 starts, and all the delegators can now claim their tokens on layer 2. So if you are a delegator, watch out for this upgrade. It'll be happening sometime in the near future. There's no set dates yet, but that is going to allow delegators to switch to layer 2 without paying any fees whatsoever. Once you're on layer 2, then you can move stake, unstake, rebond. You can do all the things at like minimum gas fees, because we're going to be on layer 2, right? For orchestrators, it's one transaction. It's expensive, but probably not much more than what it costs you to set up your orchestrator. You send out the transaction, you move through. So that is the layer 2 upgrade that is being proposed and what it means for delegators and pretty much orchestrators. Now, there are a couple questions that need to be answered for this. Like the first question being, Yondin posed, does the trade-off of a snapshot claiming process seem reasonable? In my opinion, I answered this. I said yes. Lowering the fees for delegators to move to layer 2 is going to be a big win for Livepeer. If we are asking every delegator with $100 worth of LPT to pay for a layer 2 transaction or layer 1 transaction to get onto layer 2, and it completely wipes out their interest, earnings, like it's going to wipe out half the delegators in the protocol. And I think that's a really bad idea. The only problem it being is the snapshot has to be provided by Livepeer Inc. and it can't be like trustful in the ecosystem. However, Varies did comment on that below that, and he said, if you mean the trade-off is just not being trustless, since the snapshot will be public and can be reviewed, I don't see it as an issue. So I do agree with Varies on that. I do believe that we can easily, have the ledger publicly reviewed, and if we all agree on it, then that's trustful enough, right? So that's the first trade-off, and then the second one is there's a delay between the layer 2 coming on board. You start with the orchestrators, you vote, and then you get the delegators on like a week or two later. And will that delay be a problem? I think a delay of a week or two for delegators to move on to layer 2 from layer 1 won't be that big of an issue. I know if I was a delegator and I had to wait a week before I could redeem my tokens, that means there's a lockup period of a week or two. I don't think that'll be a problem. I think that'll be fine as long as you can get rid of that gas fee. I think people will much prefer to not have the gas fee. And so a delay of a week or two will be fine. A delay of months, however, would be not okay. So we have to make sure that we are able to pull off this process within about a week or two, rather than this changing into months where the tokens are in limbo because we are stuck in between layer 1 and layer 2. So I do believe that making sure that we're just not taking unreasonable amount of time. And then once the snapshot is created, my only concern was, let's say someone leaves them, doesn't claim them for 5, 10, 20 years from now. What are the risks? I believe they're minimal, but I would have to double check on someone that knows more than me on what the risks are for leaving these tokens staked but unclaimed. Apparently they still receive their interest as they would. So luckily, if you are a delegator and you're watching this, and you're wondering, oh no, do I have to do something? The good news is you don't. You don't need to do anything. It's just when you come back at a later date, say in years from now, you're going to have to get update. You have to reclaim your tokens on layer 2, which should be a simple process and there'll be tons of support for. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. So when layer 2 comes, as your delegator, not going to be that big a deal. And really, really beneficial for the entire network. So that is the first update I wanted to cover real quick. This is the post by Yondon, and yeah, if you're on the forum, go ahead and chime in and give your feedback on this as well. The second part of this video, I want to talk about what is layer 2. So if you're already familiar with layer 2, optimistic rollups, the benefits and the fees and all these kinds of things. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But otherwise, we're going to get into this for the people that don't quite understand what a layer 2 is and how they work. So this is Titan Node's version of what a layer 2 is and how it's going to benefit the ecosystem. So real quick, a layer 2 is simply a form of fixing the problem of gas within Ethereum, right? So we all know gas fees on Ethereum are just crazy right now, right? If we go to etherscan.io, we can see that we're currently sitting at 95 GWay for gas, which when I was starting an Orchestrator node, it was 3 or 2 GWay. So we're at 95, and that's actually a low price for right now. This gets up, it's been sitting around 200 lately. So this price of gas that you pay for the security of the network is really high. So the idea of layer 2 is that you, instead of doing all your transactions on layer 1, what you do is you bundle them up. You get, say, 1,000 transactions. You bundle them up into one proof, and then that proof gets sent as one transaction on layer 1 blockchain, which is Ethereum. But you get 1,000 transactions in the layer 2 version of that roll up, right? So if you could imagine, you're like rolling up the transactions and then submitting it as one bundled transaction to the mainnet, which is going to cost you 95 GWay. So if you can imagine, you can get 1,000 transactions for the cost of 1, or maybe even 10,000 transactions for the cost of 1. And it just scales up and up and up from there, right? So there's a great article called The Ultimate Guide to L2s on Ethereum. And who is it by real quick? I'll give him a quick shout out. It is by DC Builder. So dcbuilder.eth. He actually came and did a speech with Livepeer not that long ago about layer 2 rollups. So for anyone who's not familiar, there's 4 kinds of rollups, there's 4 kinds of layer 2s on Ethereum, right? So you have on-chain, which is your transactions being submitted, its final bundle being submitted on-chain, and then you have off-chain, and then you have validity proofs and fraud proofs. Validity proofs are where things get validated as they happen, and fraud proofs are things that get validated after the fact. Okay, so ZK rollups are probably the most impressive of these because they're live valid proofs that happen in the moment. The problem is they're not out yet. They haven't been built. The infrastructure's not there, and so the other option is optimistic rollups. Optimistic rollups work just as well. You fit in tons of transactions. I'm not a layer 2 professional, and I don't know the details of all these types of things. I just know that for right now, optimistic rollups are pretty much what we have to go with because they are live, they're working, and they scale well for where we are in the ecosystem. So we have Livepeer have gone with optimistic rollups. The optimistic rollup they've decided to choose is a layer 2 called Arbitrum. Arbitrum is a layer 2 that is the most popular. In fact, if we go to l2beat.com, which is layer 2 beat, so these are the total value locked into layer 2 rollups or layer 2 protocols, Arbitrum is currently number 1, right? So it's got 2.4 billion total locked in Arbitrum optimistic rollups, followed by DYDX, and some other ones, right? So clearly Arbitrum is it's the latest and greatest. It's public, it's new, it fixes the fees, and it has the most value locked at this point. So I do believe it's a good way to go. It's 41% of the entire layer 2 market share, which means it's just the most developed, right? So pretty happy with the idea of Arbitrum. And if we go to l2fees.info, we can also check out the fees that are on these different protocols. Now, if we look at, make sure that this is not in the way, if we look at Arbitrum, we can see that it's about $2.80 per transaction, whereas a ZK Snark zero knowledge rollup is about 35 cents. However, Arbitrum will be getting down lower to that 35-cent mark, the 20-cent mark, as they roll out Arbitrum Nitro and some other layer 2 upgrades that are coming with Arbitrum. So tons and tons of upgrades coming out with layer 2. And so the goal for Livepeer is to get onto that layer 2 so we can start immediately benefiting from low fees. Okay. So that's what layer 2 is. That's how it's going to affect Livepeer. It's going to make all the transactions lower. And if you're a delegator, you shouldn't have to worry about paying any extra fees when that happens. There's tons of benefits. There are some risks to being on layer 2, of course. We have to make sure that we don't cause tokens to be minted out of thin air. We don't, layer 2s are still new. All right, so there can still be problems. One of the other problems with layer 2, which was an interesting tokenomic factor, was that if coins are minted on layer 2, there's lots of times not recognized as tokens on layer 1. So for instance, if you go to CoinMarketCap, it says that there's X amount in circulation. Well, if they're on layer 2, are they technically still in circulation? And like, how do we determine kind of like whether they're recognized or not, right? So there's still like a lot of wrinkles to fix within the layer 2 ecosystem, but it's so new that it's just coming to life right now. So basically, I just wanted to cover those guides on layer 2 and what's happening with Livepeer. The nice thing is when not Livepeer Academy, when layer 2 goes live, everything's going to be done into the Explorer. So if you're on the Explorer here, there's going to be a guide how to do it. It's all within this portal. So this is the Arbitrum portal. Livepeer will be listed here, and there'll be instructions on how to use it and sync everything over. Luckily, if you're using MetaMask, you shouldn't have any problems with this as well. So yeah, that's about it for the layer 2 upgrade. It is coming. It's going to be in 2 phases. So if you are watching this video, thanks so much for watching. That gives you kind of a breakdown of the layer 2 upgrade that's coming and some more information about what you can expect. So if you are a delegator, don't worry about anything. You can just come back when it's live and claim your tokens on layer 2, which will be 1-to-1, so you'll be perfect. And you continue to earn your rewards regardless. So ETH and LPT you earn while it's unclaimed. So you don't have to worry about any loss of rewards, which is key. If you're an orchestrator, you need to pay attention and make sure that you move over to layer 2 when the timing is right. Don't get left behind, and tell all your delegators to claim their tokens within your node. Okay, so it's really important that we all work together on this because it's going to be hopefully a nice and smooth transition. So there we go. That covers the layer 2 and all those fun things. So if you are watching this, please like, subscribe, and as always, if you want to support Titan Node, go to the Titan Node Orchestrator and delegate your LPT. You earn ETH and LPT for delegating to the Titan Node Orchestrator. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.